Hello everyone! Qatherine and I are here after a long hiatus to bring you another discussion type video.
What?
We haven't done one of these since, what, DQ11?
Yeah, I think so.
We tried to do one when Qatherine played Shin Megami Tensei 4 for the first time, and we did half of it and just never did the second
Oops.
half. Sorry.
But we're doing one now.
Yeah, so today we're doing something a little bit different, which might not make a lot of sense if you only know what we do from, like, our YouTube stuff, but both of us really enjoy visual novel type games. One of my favorite series of all time is Ace Attorney, and Qatherine, especially recently, you've been on a really big visual novel binge.
Yes, yeah. End of last year, early this year, I played the 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors, and Virtue's Last Reward from the Zero Escape series. 999 being on recommendation from Ted. So yeah,
yes, that game's awesome.
Been on a visual, like, specifically, like, sort of detective mystery virtual novels. I think neither of us are really, like, the sort of other type of visual novels.
Yeah. I mean, would Ghost Trick to count as a detective mystery? It is a mystery game, for sure.
I would call it a puzzle game with mystery elements, but, like, the mystery solving aspect just kind of comes with the plot. It's not like solving the mystery.
Yeah.
Like, the VN sections are just more there for
there's not a lot of
dressing.
detectiving in the game.
Yeah.
There's just, you solve puzzles and then, like, the plot just kind of unfolds, even though it does have a lot of those kind of murder mystery sort of tropes going on there. But I remember when we were watching the Nintendo Direct where this compilation for the Famicom Detective Club games was announced, and both you and I were like, oh wow, this looks really cool, and then we were in a call with like 3 or 4 other people who were just kind of like blank faced about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then I remember that, but like I remember being really interested and surprised that these games A, existed, and B, that we were getting.
I had never heard of these games before
Same.
that direct. And I was like, alright, this looks like a murder mystery visual novel. I know nothing about it, which is the best way to go into these things. But yeah, I'd never heard that these existed, so I'm really glad we got them. Like,
yeah, same.
Also, the remake, like, I haven't seen, partly because I literally just finished the game at the on the day of this recording, so I've tried to look up as nothing as possible. So I can't, like, it's hard for me to speak to how this compares to the original version just from the couple screen caps I've seen. But these games are gorgeous. This is
the
amazing.
art is so good. Yeah. Like, so when you think of a visual novel kind of game, you just kind of, what I personally imagine is a lot of like floating Nintendo DS or Game Boy Advance style, like Fire Emblem heads.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
That it's like a flat, not moving, like, portrait or sprite. Yeah.
And then just a lot of reading, but the art in this is amazing. I guess we should, before we get too far, we are talking about the Missing Heir here, which is chronologically the first game to come out, but it's set after the other game, which is The Girl Who Stands Behind. As of this recording, neither Qatherine or myself has played Girls Who Stands Behind, but we both have completed Missing Heir. I mean, I'm sure that presentation-wise, that game also looks great.
Mm-hmm. I think that, yeah, looked like they used the same engine and graphical style from the footage we've seen. So.
Yeah, but like, it's like there's almost, it's weird because there's animation for a lot of this stuff that's really subtle, but it also still looks like a video game and doesn't really look like an anime. Mm-hmm. You know? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I really appreciate, like, I end up preferring for a lot of games like this sprites more than 3D models, because I feel like a lot of subtle nuances can get lost in 3D models, especially if, like, it obviously depends on the game, but for something like this, for example, I personally really preferred the art style for 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors over VLR. I felt like the VLR, like, 3DS models just didn't have the same level of like subtlety and expression. And this game is sort of these really interesting type of like portraits that either kind of anime style, but like not over, you know, it doesn't feel tropey, it doesn't feel like distractingly anime.
That's one of the best things about the art is the backgrounds, I think, are the best part about the art, because the backgrounds are gorgeous, but the character designs, like, they all look they're exaggerated, but they all look like real people for the most part. There are very few anime looking characters.
And there's a number of characters who are like older adults, like not high schoolers, and like they look like adults, like they have wrinkles, they have, you know, like a couple of the men especially like have, you know, like fat. Like they're not, you know, these aren't all like high school kids with perfect bodies, although your protag is kind of a high school kid with like skinny high
really the only characters that looked like anime characters to me were protag, Ayumi, and Akane. But like I think about characters like Jiro, who like has a really angular face, you know, and the expressiveness, like there's a segment in the game where like you have to switch between talking to a character sitting on the couch and the butler who's standing behind the couch, and they shift their bodies ever so slightly so you can tell which one is looking at you directly.
Yes.
And it's like, it's such a small detail, but it's so
that. Cool. I love that so much. And I love there's one person you talk to, Azusa, and when she's annoyed or like trying to like doesn't want to talk about something, not only does she like she has a scowling face normally, but not only does she like look away from you, but her arms are crossed and she has like a nervous habit where she taps the fingers on one arm. And I'm like, I love when like games, you know, portraits or sprites do something like that, where it's like it's just kind of subtle, but it's how people are. Like, not only does someone look away if they don't want to tell you something, but like there's other tells that people have that they're hiding something.
Yeah, it's part of what makes all the characters feel so genuine, which is, I think, the game's strongest point from a writing standpoint, is that every character feels very like real and grounded and not tropey. Like, there are some tropes thrown in for humor, like there's the pervy old guy, you know, at one point, and a couple of other things. But for the most part, all of the major characters feel like real people, which is hard to do, especially when you compare it to games like Ace Attorney or Danganronpa, where the characters are cartoonish in a lot of ways. Especially like in the later Ace Attorney games, as you go on, the villains become more and more cartoons, and the witnesses become more and more cartoons, and some of them can still be enjoyable, but they don't feel grounded like this game does.
No, this game absolutely felt grounded. Like, there weren't any like ridiculous pun names as far as I know of. Like, all the characters still had Japanese names, so it's very possible
maybe in Japanese.
Yeah. But it definitely felt, it had a much more, as you said, grounded tone than like Ace Attorney, where even like, you know, in some of the most serious cases in Ace Attorney, like you've got Mr. Red White from Blue Core with his ridiculous shiny jewelry, like
yeah, so. Like, or like even like final case of Justice for All in Ace Attorney, like that's probably the most serious and dark case in the series from what I can think of off the top of my head. And that one has Old Bag in like an alien suit, you know, like shooting you with a ray gun.
Yeah, there's nothing like that. There are a few like good moments of humor, but for the most part, it's a very grounded tone.
Yes, exactly. So obviously this is a murder mystery game, so we are going to talk about the game a little bit without delving too deep into spoilers, just in case, you know, you were interested in picking up it yourself, or you haven't, or you're on the fence and you haven't seen it yet. The general, like, synopsis is that you wake up after falling off a cliff, and you have amnesia. Ooh.
I love Japanese amnesia.
You bonk your head on the window, and then you lose all your memories. You know how it is. But yeah, so you're trying to figure out the mystery behind the deaths that are happening in the Ayashiro family, which is a wealthy Japanese family in the town you're investigating, while also trying to piece together, like, your own past. So, like, the amnesia thing, I didn't mind it so much here. I know that we were talking about how there are not many tropes. The amnesiac protagonist is a huge trope, now that I'm thinking about it.
It was definitely a plot device, but, like, there was enough. Basically, I felt like this story was good enough that it earned this, like, ridiculous plot device of, like, selective, weak, convenient memory loss.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it also came out in 1988, so, like, there weren't quite as many things where you conveniently had amnesia, especially in, like, video game.
Certainly in video game. I would imagine there's plenty of other, like, mystery stories in, like, movies or books where, like, it's still a trope, but yeah, it's also convenient for the purposes of a video game, because since you forget your name, you get to name the character.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really get the point of naming the character, like, especially as a Westerner. If I put in my own name, it just sounds weird. Like, I put in my normal name, and then everybody's calling me Ted, when the other characters are Kanji, Ayumi, Zenzo, Reiko, and it's just like, I'm Ted, and I'm like, okay, all right, sure. But yeah, it does, and also they do the thing where, even though the whole game is voiced, they just don't mention your name because, like, they don't want to voice every name possible.
Yeah, so they can't.
Yeah, that was also a little weird, but I mean, it's not a big deal. You know a little bit of Japanese. What did you think about the voice acting? I mean, I personally thought it was good, but it's also Japanese, so I can't really judge it super great.
Yeah, it was really interesting for me to, like, try and follow along with the voice dialogue, and, like, to notice things about how the characters talk. In Japanese, like, and there, to preface it, like, there's a lot of vocab that I just didn't know, because, like, that's just not my level of Japanese. Like, I didn't know tante meant detective until they said it every other scene. They're saying tante. I'm putting...
Oh, tante-san.
Tante-san. Utsuki tante. I don't remember how you say agency, but, they said that all the time. But it was really interesting, like, hearing, like, for example, the butler refers to anyone in the family he works for, as well as the protag, as sama, and, like, that's not like as a a joke. Like, that's how he refers to them, because he works for them. And the butler also speaks with what's called keigo, which is, like, speech that you use for someone who is, like, significantly higher than you in social standing. Like, people would use keigo to refer to their teacher, or, like, to their superior at work. But it's very formal, and so it was kind of interesting hearing a character talk, like, almost exclusively in keigo. But yeah, so the voice acting, I don't feel like my Japanese is good enough where I can be like, oh yeah, that was great voice acting, like, but it definitely sounded good to me, and the characters, there was a lot of diversity in how they spoke, like, in terms of,
yes.
Characters, like, with very different intonation. There's some characters you run into who, like, are villagers who live in the place you're visiting, and, like, they have a much, they sort of sound like what I would expect based on other Japanese media I've seen, like, what I would expect sort of rural villagers to sound like. So yeah, I mean, it was, and I would definitely feel like it's fun if you haven't, like, speak or understand it in Japanese to try and follow along with it. But yeah, and the translation seemed pretty good too. Like as far as
Yes.
there were definitely like things where I was like, oh, okay, that's how you translated that. But overall, it seemed like I thought they did a very good job, especially with Zenzo, because as I said, he speaks with Keigo. That's not something you can translate like literally. He calls everyone like sir in English, and other than that, it's just he speaks in a very like I would describe as refined and very polite manner. Like he's not the sort of person like in English he doesn't. I think he wouldn't use like conjunctions like can't. He would say cannot, that sort of thing. So I feel like they did a really good job with his Keigo because that's so hard to translate into English. So yeah, I would say overall to me, the translation felt very good, and from what I could gather, like the things where they did take liberties in like, it wasn't a literal translation, it felt really reasonable.
You were saying, you said something about like there are a few parts where you're like, oh, you translated it this way. Are there any points in particular that you can think of?
They were really small things of like, it was so small, I honestly don't even remember, but like little things of like phrasing where like he would say, I think part of it has to do with like sort of traditional Japanese phrases of like I know there was one case I was thinking in particular where like I think he said like in Japanese he said something like please tell me, and like they sort of made it longer in English, like please, like I want to know, like they kind of just added another sentence that was kind of just saying the same thing almost, like, but again it was really small stuff like that where it was just me like sort of noticing because I understood the Japanese, like, oh, okay, that was how they chose to translate that, but it didn't feel inaccurate.
Are you talking about chapter 10?
I think it was stuff in chapter 10, yeah.
Okay. I think, so, if I had to guess, I think that what they were trying to do there is really emphasize, like, how desperately he's asking at that point. So, like, in English, we wouldn't just say, please tell me. We would say, like, if we were really desperate, we would say, like, please tell me, I need to know. We would use more words, whereas I think maybe in Japanese they would use different words. That's some of the interesting thing about localization to me is that you can get the same translation from two different people, and depending on how they localize it, it can sound very different in certain spots.
Absolutely.
Depending on their style. So I think that one of the other things that I would really want to talk about before we get going with spoilers is the music.
Yeah.
Like, I really enjoyed the music in the game, and a fun thing that I liked is that at any time you can switch between the Famicom and remix soundtracks.
Oh yeah, I didn't try the. I think there's a way you can just play the music. Like, I think
at the very least, after you beat the game, you unlock a soundtrack.
That's what I noticed after I beat the game. I need to go back and listen to the Famicom music because I forgot that was an option. I just listened to the default music.
So for the Famicom, it's actually surprisingly well done. It was the disc system, so I believe they had more sound channels to work with on the disc system. I could be wrong. But one of the things about the music is, like that kind of like the mansion music that they play whenever you're in the Ayashiro mansion, where it's kind of got like this like ding ding ding
it's
ding,
like a
ding
harpsichord,
kind of sound,
I think.
where it's like
I think the instrument's a harpsichord, but I'm not sure.
But it's got like the very particular kind of sound to it, and they like almost nail that sound on an 8-bit system.
Wow.
To the point where if you were playing it on 8-bit, it has the same kind of fancy vibe that they're going for with the fully remixed.
Yeah, a harpsichord has kind of that almost twanginess that like an 8-bit system could pretty easily have by default.
Yeah, but it was shocking how well all of the 8-bit tracks like worked. Particularly the music in Chapter 10 is amazing.
Yeah.
That's my favorite track in the game, easily.
I would say that, or the music that plays like whenever you're whenever a body shows up is really good.
Yeah, it's like it's a very simple kind of thing going on when you have the body music. But it is really effective. It's got the same kind of tension that like the Ace Attorney kind of sound has. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, music's great. Obviously the tunes are a little short because they were originally on an 8-bit system, but I still think they're pretty good. I think the only thing that I didn't like about the game, and I think this is probably your main complaint as well, has to do with the fact that it is a text adventure game from the year 1988. And if you've played any like old text adventure style game like King's Quest or Monkey Island or anything in that vein, you probably know what we're talking about, where figuring out what the game wants you to do to progress the story can sometimes be frustrating.
Yeah.
Really frustrating.
Like, honestly, I feel like if you have reservations about the gameplay, just to pull up a spoiler-free guide. Because there are, like, you found one when I was stuck on one part, because I was like, Ted, I don't know what to do. And you found one that was just like, it just told you what to do. It didn't give any spoilers. It was like, go here, look at this, talk about X, to this person. Honestly, I feel like there's no shame in doing that, because it's like, some of this stuff is so obscure, and like, I guess that was gameplay back then. But like, it's a story, and it really took me out of it to have to be like, okay, let me check these dialogue options twice in case there's more dialogue, because unlike Ace Attorney, which, is the closest thing I can compare it to.
There's a lot of similarities between it and Ace Attorney. So.
Ace Attorney, like, if you finish a topic with someone, it gets a check mark. If it's something, in the later games where there's cyclocks, it gets a cyclock mark that you're going to have to come back to that. It doesn't do that. So sometimes it's really unclear, like, you talk about something once, but you have to talk about it again because they have more to say about it, or you have to come back to it. The first part where I got really stuck, I think, and was like, Ted, I don't know what to do, the answer turned out to be, because I talked to this person about everything, and I was like, I don't know what to do to get this to progress.
And then you have to look
at him, and then he gets mad and leaves.
Yeah, and at that point, the only reason why I found it is because I was literally checking every single possible option. I was down to that point. And I don't know if the original 8-bit version, like, even had as good of a notepad as this version does, because this version, if you pause the game, you can pull up the notepad, and the game keeps track of basically every important fact that you learn about every major character, which is pretty helpful.
Yes.
But, like, I don't know if you had to take your own notes on the original 8-bit version, because that would be a doozy.
Probably, but I mean, the notepad was more like supplemental, I think. You never had to refer to the notepad, like...
Yeah, it's not like the court record where, like, you need to look at that thing all the time.
Yes.
But yeah, it's the big part, and I know, Qatherine, you got stuck here too. So there's a couple of actions that you can do usually when you're investigating or talking to people. I got frustrated because a lot of them were kind of pointless. Like, you had an option to open stuff, for example, which you use like 3 times. And it's always extremely obvious whenever you do need to use it. So every other time where it's there, it just felt like it was wasting space. Like, there's also an option to take stuff too, when you can only ever take like 3 things. But if you ever want to use the phone, you have to take the phone, which also doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, for example.
Also, I love that, like, I think at one point I was thinking, why does he always use the phone? And then I'm like, oh wait, this game was made in the 80s. That no one had cell phones.
Oh,
this poor boy has to use a landline.
Oh no. Oh, it's a long distance call. Do you accept the charges?
No wonder Ayumi gets nervous when, like, you don't come back until late. It's not like she can text you or, like, share your location with Ayumi.
Bro, where you at? Bring home Chinese.
Just fell off a cliff, LMAO!
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But, like, there's just a lot of points where you'll have to, like, it'll be like, talk about the family. Talk about specific person A. Talk about specific person B. And then after you talk about person B, you have to go back to person A, specifically. But you can't just choose talk about the family again. And I guess what's also really frustrating is that the game will often highlight stuff whenever there's a new option, but it won't always.
Yep.
So it's like, I'm almost certain that's a new feature. I just don't get why they didn't do that for everything when there was a new option.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, I wish it was I wish that it was because I understand to some extent, like, there is a logic in, like, okay, if you say something, like, if you ask them about item X, and then they're like, yeah, so-and-so mentioned it, okay, like, logically it makes sense to go back and ask about so-and-so. So I understand from that perspective, it's just, like, some of these are so obtuse. Like...
Yeah, it's especially the stuff where it's like, oh, you're talking about something, and you have to specifically, like, look at them.
Yeah.
Or look at them versus engage them, or engage them versus looking at them in order for them to specifically trigger some stuff. Yeah. And there's a couple of points I can remember where it's just like, okay, I'm supposed to meet someone at the cliff top.
Oh my God.
But you have to have them specifically say, oh, it's time for you to go meet them at the cliff top in order for that thing to trigger. Like, you only get like 1 or 2 new lines of dialogue when you finally do find the correct trigger to move on. You know, so it's frustrating because the story's so gripping, and then having your progress gatekept by something that doesn't even feel like real gameplay or investigation. It just feels like you're trying to find what the game wants you to specifically say to leave. Yep. Is just annoying. It's the biggest problem with the game easily.
And I think it's harder, for me it was always harder when there were like multiple places that I could go. Like that was one problem with the thing with like when I was talking, like when I had to look at that guy, because at the same time you could go to another room and talk to someone else. So it's like, I don't know if I'm supposed to, like, if the trigger is with her or the trigger is with him. Like, one situation where I can think of where, like, okay, it was a lot of guesswork to go forward, but it felt okay, was the conversation with Genshin, where, like, it was very, the last one with him, where it's like, okay, there's only one outcome. There's no one else I can talk to. Just keep trying everything until until you get the result you want.
I mean, like, sometimes I like the kind of puzzle in figuring out how to say stuff, like, especially with, for example, the old lady that you have to talk to. Where they're like, she'll get confused if you change subjects on her. So you specifically have to ask her the same thing over and over, and only, like, occasionally switch topics in order to get her to stay on track.
Yep.
You know, like, some of that's interesting, especially since there's not a lot of detectiving going on. It's a fairly linear story.
And I think because of the graphical limitations of it being on the Famicom, there's not a lot of, like, investigate a murder, like a scene, you know, in the same way with, like, Ace Attorney, where there was a lot of, like, clicking on things to look for, like, things in the background. There's a little bit of that, and there's a good amount of flavor text if you do that, but it's not, like, the only real example that I can think of is with one of the bodies you find, in which case I was caught off guard by how specific the triggers were for things. You're like, oh, I noticed something, but I didn't quite have my pointer over what it wanted me to. So it's like...
You talking about the neck? Because that was...
the fingers, actually. The fingers.
Oh, the fingers? Oh, yeah, I got stuck on that part, too.
Yeah, it took me a while to even notice it. And then once I did, I was like, wait, I clicked on the hand before. And it was like, oh, it wanted me to go on the fingers specifically. All right, game.
But, yeah, is there anything else pre-spoilers that you wanted to dive into?
No, I don't think so. Overall, I really like this game. Again, I feel like, first of all, people should feel free to play games however they want to anyways, but if you're particularly getting stuck on, like, how to progress, like, I feel like there's no shame in playing this with a guide. If you just want to, not get caught up in the sort of the archaic nature of a 80s, like, point-and-click adventure game, just play it with a spoiler-free guide to tell you where to go, what to do. The story is absolutely worth it.
Yeah, Nintendo Life has a really good spoiler-free guide, so I would recommend theirs. So anyway, now that the spoiler section is out of the way, we'll go through a quick, I don't know how quick, knowing us, we babble, right down to the plot. So, as we stated before, you're amnesiac, you fall off a cliff. You're woken up by definitely not suspicious Amachi, who saves your life.
It was immediately like, ooh, murder daddy.
So, okay, I think, like, if you've seen any detective show or whatever, like, Amachi's suspicious because, like, he doesn't have any connection to the plot other than he just happens to be the guy who saved you. Mm-hmm. But he stays around, which makes him suspicious.
Yeah, that was so suspicious that he's like, oh yeah, like, feel free to stop by anytime. Like, I'm here for you, bro. And, like, you stop by multiple, like, you have to. You go to his apartment.
Yeah, you talk to him at least 2 or 3 times, throughout the whole game.
The thing that made me suspicious was when you're in his apartment, like, when you visit him again, if you try to look at anything in his house, he's like, hey, can you not look at my stuff? Like, there's a photo on his shelf, and, like, you can't, the way it's reflecting, like, you can't see what's on it. And if you try to look at that, or the books, or the trinkets on his shelf, he's like, hey, can you not touch my stuff?
I just kind of thought he was a clean freak at that point, because, like, everything in his house is so spick and span.
Yeah, his house is really
you know?
But
yeah, you can't drink the coffee he gives you, though. What the heck?
He keeps saying, I'll drink it later, and then he never drinks it.
Yeah. But you meet Ayumi, after that. She's your detective buddy. Did you ever at any point present Yuri's photo to Ayumi?
Yeah, she gets mad!
Yeah, which is kind of weird when you think about, like, who Yuri actually is.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. That's funny. Yeah, I really liked Ayumi. I was afraid I wasn't going to like her, but I liked that, first of all, the game didn't shove her in your face like, ooh, romance. Which I'm like, it's not that kind of game.
Like, hinted, but she has a bigger role in the second game, from what I can tell.
I really liked her, though. I liked that, it does feel like she's helping. She doesn't often get as much information as you do, but she does, like, when in the morning you meet with her and she's like, okay, so you're gonna go do this and I'm gonna go, like, do some other investigation work. Like, you're working more directly with the family and the people involved, and she's, like, off sort of collecting intelligence where she can.
It's like often, like, usually the split is she's working on the company or specifically trying to track down a specific person, and then you're usually finding out info about the family at the mansion is usually. And I like that a lot too. She also is just like I think her voice acting was some of the best voice acting in the game from my plebeian non-Japanese ears.
I like the agency because it kind of feels like you're like, that's where you go at the end of almost every night. Like, you go back to the agency and you sort of debrief with her, and it felt like it felt kind of nice, like, having this be like you had a home base with her.
Yeah. There's a similar kind of feeling in Ace Attorney with The Office.
Yeah,
you know,
except
where,
you're not.
you're always there.
there.
You can always talk to Maya, etc.
Mm-hmm, but you don't always go back there in the same way.
Only Ayumi is much more helpful than Maya.
Yeah. And I kind of like that I was afraid Ayumi was going to follow you around all the time, and I really liked that she didn't. Like, it was nice, like, having her in that sort of, like, brief doses, not, like, all the time. Also, can we talk about the fact that your boss just hired, like, 2 high school children? And just...
We're detective geniuses.
And where the hell is he?
Child prodigies.
Where the hell is your boss? And you're, like, off, like, literally poking around dead bodies.
Yeah, like, okay, so from what we have not played Girl Who Stands Behind yet, but, like, I think he's in that one, and I think they, like, go over why we can be a detective in that one. So, like, maybe there's a reason.
Oh, Japan with
But I don't know. I think Japan just also likes its child detectives.
Japan loves its child detectives.
How many volumes of Detective Conan are there at this point?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Japan is like, children can become detectives and investigate murders.
Hey, you didn't mind when Akechi was a detective. He's a child.
Ace detective.
Ah, man. But yeah, Granny Kiku dies and Zenzo hired you to find him. Zenzo is such a good character.
Oh my gosh, Zenzo's fantastic.
Yeah, like, one of the things I really loved about Zenzo was that as you go throughout the game, his expression looks more and more tired.
Yeah.
As you go. Like, you can, like, it is different sprites for each day, and, like, his facial, like, it's not a huge difference, but you can tell by the voice acting and the facial expressions that he's just done.
He's so
by
tired.
The end of the story.
It's so clear that Zenzo honestly, like, feels so much, like, ties to this family and all the people in it, like, sort of despite knowing that a lot of them, like, aren't really good people.
None of them are good people. Like, I guess, like, Kiku, I guess, tried to make up for her mistakes.
Yeah.
Is the thing. Like, that's one of the things, like, I know my husband did terrible things. Mm-hmm. And she, like, basically, she kicked Kazuto out of the house. You know, and, like, effectively pushed Yuri away from the house, too. But she, like, felt bad and was trying to make up for those things. But, like, Kanji and Jiro are bad people. Azusa's a bad person. You know.
Akira's a bad person.
I mean, that's kind of interesting. The interesting thing about Kanji and Jiro is that they're bad people, but it doesn't seem like they did anything, like, terribly wrong. They're just assholes that run a company, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it just kind of felt like they were petty and infighting with each other. Like, I didn't get the vibe that, like, Kanji was so ruthless with the organization that he would do the shit that Yuri's dad would do, like going so far as to make a whole family, like, effectively want to kill themselves.
Yeah, it was unclear, and, like, they never go into the details of, like, what the company was doing. I remember they mentioned that Kanji and Jiro wanted the company to go in a direction that Kiku didn't want it to, and because she was chairwoman, they weren't allowed to. So it was implied that with her out of the way, they would. But they never went into details of, like, what that was, and, like, you know, was it unethical what they wanted to do? But yeah, they weren't, like, you know, Kanji and Jiro weren't, like, killing people. They were just sort of corrupt businessmen, possibly, type bad people.
Yeah, they were assholes, you know. Like, did they deserve to die? Probably not. You know,
Azusa was just kind of like, I feel like her biggest problem was she was, like, terrible with her money. And kind of greedy.
But I do love that they do feel like real people, though. And, like, for example, when Kanji dies, Jiro's like, "Big brother, no, how could anybody do this?" And then when Azusa walks in, he's just like, "You piece of shit, you don't feel a goddamn thing." And as soon as he's exposed, Jiro, like, drops the act immediately.
Yeah.
You know? And he's like, "Okay, are we done? Can I leave now?" It's like, the writing on display, I thought, was really, really good there, in that they kind of felt like the most authentic. I guess because they're bad people, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember seeing people being bad in this specific way in a lot of these stories, like just being selfish and greedy, but not being like evil.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I really like how Azusa, like, I loved her brand of like bad, where she would just like, yeah, I bet so-and-so did it. like Akira probably did it. He owned like whatever with his father, and then when or maybe Jiro did it. And she's just like pointing fingers like crazy. And I'm like, you are the most sus person here, lady.
Yeah, Azusa is definitely like the biggest red herring in the game, I think. Like, you're not sure if she did it, but like, especially out of the three, the three main Ayashiros that are alive at the start of the game, it's just like, she owes money to her brother and the grandmother. Oh, look at that. The grandmother and Kanji are both dead. Oh, that's perfectly convenient for her, isn't it? You know?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then also, that for a while, the other two are dead, and she's alive. And you're like, And also that she gives, the most, she's so uncooperative. Like, first of all, I gotta say, these people are so terrible when you're like, can you tell me where you, and Protect-kun is so nice. He's like, would you mind telling me where you were last night between...
I am insulted. How dare you ask me that question? I can't believe you would suspect me of such a thing. I refuse to talk to you anymore. I'm leaving.
That is literally how Azusa reacts to you asking for her alibi.
They actually, that's something that they kind of just leave open, is that Azusa lies to you when Jiro is dead.
Yeah.
She says, oh, I was in the mansion, and then Zenzu's like, oh, she went out.
Yeah.
So, she's lying to you. You don't ever really find out what she was doing.
No.
No,
I had assumed she was more involved with the person who is revealed to be behind it than it turns out she actually was.
Yeah, it turns out that the only reason why she died was that she tried to extort him for money.
Fucking dumbass.
Which is such a her move. Really, it's just it's just oh, I'm gonna take advantage of the situation, and then I'm dead.
Yo, I'm still broke. Give me money, and he's like, yeah.
It's like, lady, you just got out of who knows how much debt, scot-free. You mind cooling it for 5 minutes? Okay, thanks.
It's freaking ridiculous. Yeah, but Jiro gets mad too when you ask him his alibi. He's like, how dare you? Are you insinuating I did it? I'm like, have y'all never heard of, a cop? I hope you say that to the police. This is, routine. But you ask whatever, what were you doing at the time of the murder? The whole point is also, if you have an alibi, it removes you from suspicion. And if you don't, if you're honest about it, they're gonna listen to you, the police are gonna believe you more than if you're how dare you? I'm not telling you where I was or what I was doing. You can't ask me that.
I mean, we are a 17-year-old punk.
Yeah.
So, maybe they just didn't take us.
And I know Zenzo
It's surprising how seriously the police take you, though. They're like, oh, you're Atsuki-san's apprentice. Here, come this way. Poke the body as much as you like.
Would you like to see this dead body? I think Zenzo was a little sad when you asked, but then I think he also, understood why you were asking, so he told you.
Yeah, he was like, oh, you're asking me? And then he's like, yeah, I guess you do need to do that. Okay. Which is that's such a real, thing.
Yeah.
That's part of why he's such a great character.
Gosh, Zenzo's so good.
Zenzo. Okay, so is Zenzo your favorite character in the game?
Ooh, crap.
Because Kumada's my favorite. Kumada-sensei.
Yeah, I'll have to think about that. But I remember there was a scene where Zenzo calls you on the phone and he's freaking out, and I was something about the way his voice sounded when he was freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, is he dying? And then because Protag's like, Zenzo-san! Zenzo-san! And I was like, if Zenzo's dead, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And he wasn't dead, and I was like, thank you.
Was that like end of chapter 4 or 5?
It was right before you find Jiro's body, I think. He calls you on the phone.
I think that's the end of chapter 4, I think.
That sounds about right.
I don't really remember. But yeah, like, there's a lot of characters in this game that, like, you talk to a surprising amount, like, the train station guy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you talk to him a lot, you know? And the villagers, too. Like, they get a lot more screen time than you would think for kind of minor unnamed characters.
Yeah, and, like, the train station guy ends up being, like, he had a personality.
Yeah, he was, like, kind of put up with everybody's BS, but also, like, he wanted people to like him, so, which was also kind of cool. Like, if you show him the mirror, he's like, oh, I take pretty good care of my looks, you know, and then he's like, okay, bruh, all right.
Also, I remember there was one point where he was like, he actually gave me a hint, because I scared off all the villagers, and he was like, oh man, you scared them all off, like, I know they're annoying, but maybe you can learn something from talking to them. And I was like, oh. And then if you leave the area and go back, all the villagers came back. Hey! But yeah, no, train station dude was like, had a surprising amount of personality. And you never find out his name.
No. Kumada's probably my favorite. He's the doctor.
So good.
For one, he's got kind of like a gruff sort of speaking style. Where, like, one thing I could tell, even though I don't speak Japanese, is he very rarely uses honorifics.
Yeah, he's very casual. Like, he ends a lot of his sentences like ja, which is it's not a like it's I feel like it's informal enough that I didn't learn it in classes, because they like unsurprisingly most of what they teach you in classes is how to be polite, like speak politely and formally, and not how to sound like you're like a doctor who can, in a country town, who can afford to sound a little casual, like. But yeah, no, he absolutely has sort of like a gruff, like, real, not formal speaking style.
Yeah, and he's just like, for one thing, one that I really liked is that it's very clear that he knows what he's doing, but he also like. He gets really into the investigation as well, and he's like the most helpful character outside of like Zenzo.
Yes.
In the whole game.
I think I started really liking him like at the point where he started getting really invested in this and being like, hold on, there's more going on here than what it looks like.
I think it's the point where I think that really happens is when Zenzo commits suicide. Because you're both like, this isn't a suicide.
You said Zenzo. You know? Zenzo didn't commit suicide. We would have cried.
Jiro, sorry. No, sorry. Like, when Jiro commits suicide, that's like the point where he's like, no, you're right, he didn't commit suicide.
He's like, this doesn't add up. I want to figure out what happened. And then he becomes like...
And it's such a natural flow, too,
yeah.
you know?
And then he becomes like your investigation buddy, and he helps you do research. Also, can we talk about how he reacts whenever you bring up Yuri?
Yeah, because he has such a cute, like, he has a crush on her, obviously. And it's some of the funniest things, too. Like, when there's a heart in his text box, I just did not expect that, and it got me to laugh out loud.
And he just blushes and makes this adorable face. He's like, woo!
Also, like... It's like either chapter 8 or chapter 9 when he says he's going to go to the newspaper and do some research there. And then you find his body, like, lying on there with, like, his head on the table.
Oh my gosh.
Like, you shake him a couple of times and he's not moving. And then you shake him a couple more times and he's still not moving. And I was freaking out there.
And
like,
then it starts playing the scary music. It starts playing the...
Did they kill Kumada? And then he wakes up and I'm like... Dude.
Yeah,
but then I laughed.
During that whole scene, I was like oscillating between like, oh my gosh, is he dead? And is this gonna be a like he wakes up? And then it was he woke up. And I was like,
yeah, but they like, I think what makes it work is that they go with it long enough that you really do start to think maybe he is actually
dead. It was taking so long that I'm like, I don't think this is the joke wouldn't go on this long, and then it was, and I was like, all right, that's pretty good.
It helps that he is probably the main comic relief character in the game.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Like, the only other, like, there's a couple of the villagers that have some comic relief elements to them. Like, the guy who named his cat Mom.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah, but the game's plays it pretty straight, for the most part.
There's also the guy who's like, that could even be Miss Kiku behind you.
Oh, dude, I forgot about that. Was crazy.
And then it just cuts to Pro-Tycoon not having it. Like,
that was so funny because it was so cliche and ridiculous, but it was also so dramatically done. And then Protag is just like, ellipses. I'm not impressed.
Yeah. So yeah, what did you think about how the game handled the Protag's past?
Oh, like, I actually thought it was really interesting. I was surprised. Honestly, I did not guess that. Are we going to go into full spoilers now?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, we are already in full spoiler.
Right.
If you've listened to 50 minutes of this, I was hoping you've already played the game.
Until the line where Ayumi is like, what's that burn mark on your shoulder? I did not suspect. I think part of it was I was confused about the ages of some of the people. Like, I got confused that that Yuri's kid was only like 17, 18 for some reason. I thought he was older because, like, I mean, that's pretty. So I think she was like, I'm getting confused.
So Ayumi, they said, ran away about 20 years ago.
Okay. I think I got confused because I expected Yuri to be closer to, like, the cousins' ages, where, like, her cousins, Kanji and Jiro and Azusa were, like, I think Kanji was, like, 58. So I assumed Yuri was a lot older. So I thought Amachi was going to be her kid, because Amachi was 38, so if she was like 20, like, or like, if she was 58, she would have been like 20 when she had him. But I think she ran away 20 years ago and she was 25. So I got a little confused about the timing of, like, the age of things. So I thought her kid was going to be a lot older. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're her kid? Like, totally caught me off guard. But I thought it was done really well. Like,
so I got an inkling of it before you did. Okay. Like, I think it was because you're obviously supposed to think that it's suspicious that you don't talk to Kanda.
Yes.
Like, at all.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to think something's up with him. And obviously you're supposed to think something's up with Amachi, because he's like he's just suspicious.
Yeah, he's super suspicious.
Yeah, but you also, your background isn't really brought up for a long time after the very beginning of the game. Like, you just don't remember a lot. So I was expecting it to pop up at some point. And when they mention, I forget what it was that they mentioned, but they mentioned that, I think they mentioned that, he would be about your age at some point. That's when I was like, and bells started ringing in my head. But the whole chapter 10 sequence where you find out, like, what happened, like, part of what makes it work is how much you have to push,
Motoko.
Motoko, yes. She's Sawako's daughter. How much you have to push her in order to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, yep.
Because, like, you can tell that this woman, like, doesn't want to tell you because she knows that you're not going to be happy with the answers.
Yeah.
But, like, especially, the voice acting, I think, is what kills it, because I think Protag's voice is amazing. It's very well done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, I think his voice is probably better than... I think I said earlier that Ayumi's is my favorite voice. No, it's Protag. Protag is the best
yeah,
voice.
I really like his voice.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that whole scene was really, like... Yeah, as you said, the music is fantastic. It was like... It felt a little drawn out, like, trying to get the information out of her, but it absolutely made sense in context that, like, she doesn't want to tell you this. Like, she's clearly hesitating because she knows, like, this is not happy news she has to tell you. But oh my gosh, and when you saw, I think one thing that really stuck out to me was when she shows you the picture of Protag as a kid with his essentially his foster mom, Satoko, and like, oh gosh, he looks so small and so sad, and like it absolutely makes sense. But it was like, oh, and the way he like then recognizes his foster mom, he's like, oh, that was really sweet.
Yeah, and it builds up to the climax too, because one thing I was not expecting at the very end was it to go into like a first-person dungeon crawler kind of thing. Oh my gosh,
I was so confused for a second, and then I was like,
and you have to actually remember to turn on the flashlight, which is both great like gameplay flavor, but also like, you dumbass, he gave you a flashlight. Turn on the flashlight, you idiot.
He walked out like in there and then just stood there in the dark for a minute, and then we're like, oh, I have a flashlight. Let me turn that
Detective geniuses.
He's so smart. He forgot that part when he fell off a cliff. He forgot.
How long did it take you to realize you had to bump your face into the pictures to get through?
It actually took me, so I found, it took me a while to get oriented as to which way it was, like, going.
Did you get the mirror as the map?
Yeah, I did, and then, like, once I figured out sort of which way, like, that helped, once I got that to show up on screen. And then, so I think I found all the walls, and then I was like, okay. Oh, the other annoying thing was you had to find all the walls, I think, before it reminded you what the pattern was that was written on the paper.
I kept on, like, because you're given this pattern and this riddle way earlier in the game, so I kept on, like, pausing the game and going into the notebook in order to check.
Was it in the notebook?
But then if you go to the Ayashiro family section, and you scroll like halfway through.
Okay, I didn't check that one. I couldn't find it, but the game eventually mentioned it, and then I was like, and I think I figured it out because I got close enough I went to the first one, which is like the horse, and I got close enough, like the first one, the pattern, and I got close enough, and then I think I bumped into it by accident. I said like, oh, it moved, and I just I did it a couple more times to see if the dialogue changed, and then I was like, okay. So then after that, it was pretty straightforward of like, go to the rabbit, go to the chicken. But oh my gosh, that was, as you said, was not expecting that. It also made me a little dizzy.
Yeah. Another thing, and I can't believe we forgot to mention this, but like when you go through the puzzle, and then at the end, and then you find Amachi / Konda there with his murder face.
Oh my gosh! So
can we talk about how gruesome the death scenes for this game are?
Oh, I love
like
them.
You have a fucking Akira stuffed in a bucket, bloody headed, with his eyes pointing in different directions.
Oh my gosh, I'm trying to think. So like the first one with Kanji was pretty, like, I was shocked. Like, again, this is where like the tone is so different from like Ace Attorney, and also like for most of the murders in Danganronpa, I would say, like, one thing. So I know you haven't played Danganronpa. I've watched Let's Plays. One thing, like in Ace Attorney,
I know about the pink blood.
Yeah. In Ace Attorney, they don't show the bodies like most of the time, and when they do, like, they're pretty tame, and it's often like just crime scene photos. In Danganronpa, one thing is, like, they show bodies, but almost all the time, the eyes are closed or not visible. There's one murder in particular, for people who've played Danganronpa, I'm thinking of Case 5 in Danganronpa 2, where the eyes are open, and it's shocking. Like, it's really disturbing to see a body with its eyes open. And, like, often then the face ends up looking very pained. So when the first body, Kanji, is, like, eyes open and has a knife through him. Honestly, his face was more gruesome to me than like, okay, he's got a knife stabbed through his body.
Yeah,
like his
it's the faces that I got stuck on too. The other thing that kind of stuck with me with one of the bodies for Azusa was the torn pantyhose.
Yeah.
Like that made it clear like, oh crap, she fought for her life.
Oh, I assumed,
basically.
actually, I assumed that was more that her getting tossed around in the water. Like, her neck,
Look,
though.
I had a headcanon, all right, of her fighting for her life, and you're just ruining it with your perfectly reasonable logic.
Look,
How
I
dare
think
you.
out of the two of us, I've worn more tights than you.
You don't know that for sure.
I'm just saying. But yeah, no. Kanji, it was the face. With Jiro, it was like the fact that his body was swaying, even like in the cutscene, like, you know, a hanging body.
For me, it was his mouth.
Yeah.
Like the way his mouth hung open. You can like see the tongue.
Yeah.
Too.
Which is, it's interesting that happened because you find out he wasn't hung. Like,
yeah. Yeah, but I mean, like, he did have to, like, hang him from there, so it makes sense that it would jostle his head around that would happen.
Yeah.
I think Akira is probably the most gruesome murder, though. Especially since, like, he didn't even bother to properly, like, lay him down. He shoved him in a bucket and threw him in there.
Yeah, no, Akira was absolutely the most... Like, you don't see it for as long, because I don't even think you don't get... You know, because you get up close to inspect it, and then you have the flashback of him trying to kill you. And that was scary when it showed him, like, looking like he's gonna kill you. I was like, holy cow.
I always get caught on the smirk he has when you see him on the cliff and you falling down.
Yeah, no, that awful, like, I'm gonna murder you smirk was like, whoa. That was intense.
Yeah.
But yeah, Azusa's body was pretty bad too, just because, again, like, she looked like she was in so much pain. And the marks on her neck, like, was really messed up.
Like, showing, like, a dead woman who was clearly strangled is not something that a lot of games would have the balls to do.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah, the body... But, like, it also, with Kanda in the final section, like, for one, seeing the scratches that Azusa left on his face.
It took me a second to notice those. Can I just say that even before, like, it showed Kanda, so you're looking at the altar, and then it, like, perspective changes, so you're looking at Protag, and then the camera started panning, and even before I saw anything, as soon as the camera started panning, I was like, there's someone behind him, it's gonna be Kanda, someone's behind him, like, oh my gosh, and then then you see the shoes, and then it shows Amachi, and I was like, oh my gosh, because he's got the murder face.
Yeah, and, like, he's got the... and he's also a good, like, Kanda's a good villain,
Also
which is
the flashlight,
surprising because
the flashlight lighting is perfect for it.
Yeah, but it's like, it's surprising how good of a villain he is when he's not really on screen, like, at all.
Yeah.
As Kanda. Like, you've got Amachi, which kind of goes to show, like, how good of an actor he is. Mm-hmm. But, like, his motive is totally reasonable.
Yeah.
You know? Like, that family ruined his life. But you can also tell just by the way he acted that it became an obsession rather than like a revenge or justice kind of thing, you know?
Yep.
So, like, yeah. I really like this game. Like, I was expecting to like it, but I ended up really enjoying it.
Yeah. That was, oh my gosh. That scene with Amachi, though, was like, oh, yeah, that's great. His true colors. Okay.
Yeah. So, setting aside the gameplay stuff, because I know that that's the biggest problem with the game. How would you say this holds up to stuff like Ace Attorney, 999, Ghost Trick, Danganronpa, all of those kinds of things? Because I like it a lot, but I also feel like it is such its own, like, it's such a diffent style.
Because it's pure visual novel, really. Like, about as close to visual novel as it can get, I feel like, at least compared to the other ones you've mentioned, where, like, 999 has puzzle rooms, Danganronpa has the whole trial thing and, like, the dating simulator, essentially. Ace Attorney...
You get to make a comic book!
That's a cool one, okay? That's one of the only mini games that I could...
Can you spell the word knife?
That one is not a good mini game. Nobody likes
you're
that
right.
mini game. Anyways.
Yeah, it's like, you brought that up, though. It's interesting. There's not a lot of detective in this. Like, there's 3 times where you have to input, like,
input a word?
Like, an answer.
Okay, can I say, it really took me out of it when it goes from, like, the font of the game to, like, the Switch default font.
Yeah.
Type in a password.
Also, I tried to type in smoking for one of them, and they were like, no, that's not it. And then I'm like, cigarettes, and they were like, yeah, that's it. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
no, I did cigarette.
Okay.
I was curious what it did and didn't accept, but I never got one wrong. So.
I think tobacco would also be an acceptable one, because that's the word they use.
Yeah. Tobacco.
Yeah. Tobacco. Yeah. But yeah, I think, like, this is actually a question, because I know we're both going to play Girl Who Stands Behind next. Do you think that they make another one if this does well? Because I know Yoshiro Sakamoto, he also works on Metroid.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the state of Metroid is right now. I feel like nobody does. Do you think that, would you play a new game if they made one in this style? And do you think that things would, like, it would try to lean more into gameplay, or do you think it would be more just straight visual novel?
I would absolutely be interested if they announced they were making another one. I would honestly prefer, like, I wouldn't want them to go with a lot of, like, mini games or, you know, like 999 style puzzles, but I wouldn't mind if they went a little more, like, active detective-y stuff. Like, as you said, like, you know, because I feel like the way you have to, like we were complaining about how you have to, like, figure out, you know, what dialogue option is correct and whether or not you have to stare at someone. If they can find, like, I feel like that was supposed to be the detective thing. But I feel like that didn't age well. It's
the worst part of the game.
I feel like that was what they were going for as far as a detective, that, like, you have to figure out what to ask these people. You have to figure out how to get the response you want. And if I would like if they figured out a way to sort of modernize that, to make it, like, still that aspect of, like, I almost feel like what would work better is if you had more ability to, like, present things to people. You know, in the way of Ace Attorney, where, like, sometimes to get dialogue to advance in Ace Attorney, you have to be like, look at this badge. And so, like, stuff like that, where, like, occasionally you were allowed to do that, but you didn't often have the freedom to do that. Like, so, yeah, I would absolutely, I would like it to still be more, like, visual novel, but if they could think of ways to, like, make it really feel like you are a detective, or even like I would have liked more stuff where you were, like, we were finding clues in the environment. Like I said to Ted, so one thing that never got brought up is that in the living room in the mansion, there's a picture on the wall of the cliff you fell off, and it never is brought up or becomes significant.
It's probably because they just put that in there as an Easter egg, and on the NES version, it's probably just like a frame, you know?
Probably like a really tiny, badly
like, it probably is a frame with some color on it on the Famicom version, and if you examine it, it probably says, this is a photo of the cliff.
Yeah.
You know, or something like that.
Yeah.
So
even, like, I mean, I feel like one detective thing that happens, but that you have no involvement in as far as, like, figuring out what to do, is when you find, like, Zenzo mentions, like, oh, Azusa took notes while on the phone on that notepad, and you see, like, okay, well, obviously she didn't leave the notes there, but Protag's like, oh, what if I did that pencil trick that everyone knows? Like, but you don't have, like, you have no role in figuring out that you could do that, or like even, you know,
Yeah.
poking
if
the
that were Ace
screen.
Attorney and Emma Sky was there, you would have a crappy touchscreen minigame.
You would rub the screen.
Yeah. But yeah,
And
so
run out.
I
You
have
would
heard...
no, Ted. You would rub the screen and then run out of pencil lead.
Oh god, don't get me started on
yuck, yuck.
freaking Ace Attorney 6 BS. But yeah. So yeah, if there's interest, we will definitely do a discussion on Girl Who Stands Behind. Almost everyone I've talked to says that one's better.
Ooh.
So it'll be interesting to see what we think about that, because I feel like you and I, when we agree on stuff, it's on crap that nobody else agrees with. You know?
Yeah.
Like how you and I agree that, like, DQ8's not the best one, but, like, we're the only ones who think that.
Yeah. It's lonely being correct.
I know, right? It sucks. Yeah. Alright, but anyway, thank you everybody so much for watching.
Oh, wait, hold on. Wait, can we talk about the very ending?
I was so sad that they don't ever, like...
It was a
Are you
really
gonna talk to Yukiko?
ending. Yeah. Also, oh yeah, Yukiko! What the heck?
Yeah, I wanted an epilogue. That was the one story complaint I had is, like, do Kazuto and Yukiko actually get together? Like, what does Kamada do? Like, does Zenzo, like, does Kazuto work for the corporation now? Does, like, Zenzo work for him? Like, is Akane okay? Like,
Yeah.
you know, all these stuff. Like, I mean, the ending is, like, sweet in the sense that, like, Protag decides that he would rather have his normal life as a detective than the fancy life as an Ayashiro, which I think is... But, like, I wanted the where are they now kind of thing.
Yeah, I think
on,
that probably comes down to, like, Japan, like, Japanese writing and, like, media being more okay with open endings than Western media often is. But I would, honestly, I would have liked if we found out more about what happened to everyone else and then they left it open with Protag. Like, what, you know, what happened to him. But I really thought that was, like, when someone ran in and grabbed Amachi / Kanda, I was like, is that Kazuto? Is that Kazuto? And it was. And I was so surprised because for most of the game, I was like, okay, either Kanda is Kazuto, and, like, basically Kanda being Kazuto was the red herring, because Kanda and Kazuto were said to be about the same age, and Kazuto had openly told people he wanted to be a lawyer. Kanda was a lawyer. So that was, like, and I fell for it. I was like, either Kanda is Amachi or he's Kazuto. And but yeah, so Kazuto showing up at the end was like, oh, okay, that got resolved too. And it was really interesting, like, that, yeah, he was, like, looking for you. And the fact that he was in a scene for, like, 2 seconds, and it was like, oh!
That last scene's so good, though,
really
because you get a very clear sense that he's a caring, like, decent guy.
And how much your mom
just from
cared
that
about
last scene. And I don't know how effective this was on the Famicom, but the art in that last scene is gorgeous.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm a beach bum. I'm a sucker for sunset pictures over the water with, like, lots of, like, colorful sky stuff. Like, I love that crap.
The lighting on his hair was really good, I noticed. Yeah, and it was really touching. Like, I agree how Protag was just like, you know what, I don't want to be a part of that crazy ass family. Like, because honestly, if he went back, like, he would kind of be shackled to being in charge of the Ayashiro Corporation, and, like, it was clear.
He's 17 years old. He doesn't know how to... He barely knows how to be a detective. How is he gonna be a CEO?
So I really, like, I thought that was a really good ending of, like, you know what? I want to keep the life that I have. And...
Especially when, like, you just discovered, like, you just rediscovered how much being a detective meant,
And it feels like you're leaving the Ayashiro Corporation probably in good hands, because everything looks like Kazuto's a stand-up guy. He he really cared about finding you. He was he took care of his mother when she was not doing well. And also I feel like the fact that he was raised, grew up for the most part outside of the family is probably good. Because I feel like that was part of the problem with that family, was just sort of the problem of inherited wealth.
Yep.
So I'm it felt a little weird that we just handed over to this guy we just met, but at the same time, he seems like as good a person as any to handle it. And also I remember Zenzo, when the topic of Kazuto came up, he was like, yeah, he is an heir. He should be able to inherit it too. So I think Zenzo would be happy to work with him.
You specifically don't tell Zenzo that you are Yuri's child.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Probably because Zenzo would be would want you to come back. And you don't want to break Zenzo's heart. He's such a nice guy.
Poor Zenzo. Zenzo needs a hug. Best eyebrows. So yeah, so do you think, I know that you like to take breaks between games, do you think you're going to jump right into Girl Who Stands Behind?
Not sure. I might, because it was really, I really liked this one, so.
Yeah, I did too. So anyway, thank you everybody who stuck with it for one of our shorter discussions, believe it or not. Yeah. And next time we'll probably be talking about the Missing Heir. This was the Missing Heir, crap. The Girl Who Stands Behind. But if we're not, that means we probably got stuck playing SMT3 for some reason. I don't know. We'll see. We'll probably bitch about that game for an hour.
We probably will.
Okay. Have a good night, everyone.
Amachi Uwu Murder Goddess.
You shut up.